Agenda is other council business, rule adjustments. Okay, I'm gonna move out of the way and Ann's gonna slide in here.
Again, everybody, for the record, my name is Ann Thompson. I'm a policy analyst for the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids. In relation to Senate Bill 558, which was passed in 2023, we are planning to do a minor adjustment to the definitions that the council currently operates under. And that is to include the federal definition of an over-the-counter hearing aid, which is defined in 21 CFR 800.30 to the list of things that are not considered a hearing aid, along with personal amplification systems and assisted listening systems. So that is something that is a very minor clarification. We are hoping that it provides some clarity to licensees, and we don't expect it to be very involved rulemaking because it's not something anybody can really debate. It's just adding the federal definition to things that are not a hearing aid. So we'll probably get that started Monday morning. And we wanted to let you guys know about it before we began to proceed. As licensees, interested parties, you'll start to receive communications about the change. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Enriquez, I have a question.
Yes, Lorraine.
Yes, thank you. I would be very interested to hear back as to how licensees are to refer or what the nomenclature is for an over-the-counter hearing aid, since the word hearing aid is still in that, the description. So if there's going to be a change, will that change include the language change, what we call these devices? Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. You always have the most interesting questions. Well, these over-the-counter hearing aids are a new category of device, and their ranges and tolerances are actually defined in the number that's in the bill, which is 21 CFR 800.30. And that number encompasses all of these devices. And so we will be adding that number, that federal number, to our rules, saying an over-the-counter hearing aid as defined in, and we're going to list the federal number, so that there is no gray area. It is an over-the-counter hearing aid with the specs and ranges and all that of these new devices defined by the feds. Does that help?
And
I'm sorry, this is Henriquez in response to that. Thank you. I think it is still very confusing to both providers and consumers because the word hearing aids is there. So I will just make that comment and open for discussion, whether it is or not. I'd like to hear back. Thank you.
Sure.
And this is Doug Walsh.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, how you doing? A while back, I believe in one of our meetings, didn't we have a list of federal acceptable hearing aids that who was acceptable and who was not?
That does not sound at all familiar to me. Can you elaborate?
I may have received the information from someone else, but there is actually a list of what companies are the FDA approves and does not approve, which is interesting.
It's my understanding, because I've been following this since I believe the federal law went through in like 2017. At the bottom of a very large omnibus bill. And at the time the bill passed and was signed, these devices allegedly didn't exist. There was some research I found that indicated that some of the devices were already available under various descriptions in Europe, maybe in Asia. And I know Bose was a big proponent of this change. But according to the feds, their rules that they had yet to define, to come out with, would create some requirements around the devices, what their tolerances were, how adjustable they were, and what they were intended to do, mild to moderate hearing loss. Much the same, I mean, in many ways, it was very similar to going to a podiatrist and getting custom orthotics versus going and standing on that little thing at Walgreens and picking out something from Dr. Scholl's. But the tolerances and some of the mechanical specs that they had were very, very hard for me to understand. And so I was waiting for the rules to come out so I'd have a better understanding of what these devices looked like, were packaged like, and they dragged their feet. The FDA dragged their feet on it for so long. It took like a government mandate. Come on, we need this. And then they finally finished up their rules. And Best Buy said that they were planning on having specially trained employees selling these in, like, I don't want to say kiosks because they were bigger sections of the store, but Best Buy was a big player in this along with Bose. So whether or not people get confused by it, I'm not sure, but we have never had any sort of specs or companies or devices or anything like that that have come through me and thus conveyed to this council.
Well, I'm gonna have to find that list. If I do, I will relay it, send it over to you.
Okay. I mean, there's
Okay.
lots of people. I mean, the idea behind it was that folks could go into drugstores, big box stores, Walmart, anywhere, and just as you would buy Dr. Scholl's inserts or those reading glasses that they have on the spinners by the pharmacies, that you could take a simple self-diagnosis test and grab something off aisle 3. I mean, that was the whole purpose behind it. Now, how it's operating in practice, I have not gone to Best Buy to try it out, but that's my understanding at this time.
Okay,
Any other questions?
not for me.
I'm sorry, I heard a little blip. No, we're good?
Oh, that was that. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Enriquez, I have another comment,
Okay.
not so much a question. When hearing aid dispensers, their business carries over-the-counter hearing aids, I think the distinction blurs quite significantly. And so I still think that there needs to be clarification for hearing aid dispensers as to how we refer to these devices. Okay. Otherwise, it's, in my opinion, very confusing for the consumer, especially. And if anyone
Sure.
if anyone's experiencing that kind of thing, I'd like to hear. But I think it's so confusing for the consumer. They're going to turn to us, the dispenser, and ask for help. And I just don't know how we define that to the consumer, how we relay that information, and what language is used. Thank you.
No, Lorraine, a lot of what you're touching on, the staff, including regulatory, Bob and myself, we have had many discussions ever since this class of device appeared on the horizon in 2017. What does that look like? How does that work? It's always difficult when people refer to something in a common way, to something, when it also contains a legal definition, a statutory definition. That's always complicated. And as these devices have become more common and rolled out, especially our current regulatory manager, Trampus, we've spent an awful lot of time saying, well, what if? and how does this play out? And yes, it's confusing to people. There's no doubt about it. When they're using the word in a common way and you have multiple definitions of that same thing. We hope that you'll be able to offer some guidance to your clients. We are also anticipating that a lot of the gray areas, how much can a licensee do for somebody who's picking out if they deal in both conventional, adjustable, customizable hearing aids, as well as these devices, how much service can they provide before they're officially dealing in hearing aids? And this is a very sticky issue. We understand. And we're hoping that, I hate to say it, a lot of times these areas are clarified as cases come up. And we have had other boards where they had similar concerns, not like yours, but something like this. And they were concerned about a lot of cases, and it turned out to not be so. It didn't turn out to be as complicated as we thought it might be. This might be a case where we get a complaint and we learn things through that complaint that will then allow us to further refine. But we don't know what we don't know. And we admit that this can be very confusing. And right from the beginning, when I started watching this back in 2017, I was like, what are we going to do with this? So we feel your concern, we share your concerns, and we hope we'll be able to offer some clarity as these items roll out and we have more details. Is that helpful?
Yes, I think it is. Again, I don't want to, hold up this meeting, but, if a consumer makes a complaint, is that something or about an over-the-counter device or a provider who dispensed an over-the-counter device? I don't think that they have any protections with the board, with our council as far as a complaint goes. Am I correct?
Well, again, it's a great question, and that would be case by case, because when you have two areas that are up against each other like that, you really have to look at the details. What was said, what was promised, what was delivered, what the complaint was, because sometimes the consumer is right, sometimes they misunderstood, sometimes the licensee missed a step. It's really case by case, and it depends on the facts of the case. But I absolutely appreciate your concern.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
Of course. If we're all okay for right now, what I will do is turn the meeting back over to Director Bob.
All right. Next item under other council business, Doug was going to talk about cerumen management.
This is Doug. So I've had some calls and some emails about questions about why don't we do cerumen management and how can we get it back up and running? So this is something that's not my decision, but I'd like to open the doors or just a couple words from everybody that, how do you feel about it? Is it something that, out of experience, is something I don't do? So because of these statutes, but how does everybody else feel about it?
Vladimir
This is
Gutierrez
Henriquez,
here.
Doug.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, Vladimir.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I definitely think that it is something that would be good to, discuss. And if it's something that, the board considers would be important to, again, discuss and see what would be the pros and cons. But I do know of many other states where this is allowed for hearing aid dispensers. So I definitely think that it is something that would be great to discuss.
This is Bob.
This is Doug. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Doug, yeah, so as I understand it, other states have different statutes that don't necessarily translate to what Oregon has in statute. So I just want to, have you keep that in mind. And then I think Doug had a comment, and I also believe Lorraine had a comment prior to that.
Yes, thank you. Vlad is correct that, there are many states where hearing aid specialists perform cerumen removal management, however you want to refer it to. I, in my scope of practice, since this came down, have referred my patients, but I've controlled the referral as far as reaching out to an ear, nose, and throat doctor to schedule an appointment for removal, and then scheduling the patient to come back and see me afterwards. And the reason I think it's a good idea is removing cerumen can lead to other issues such as bleeding that may not be controllable in our offices. And I do think it is, my opinion, it is best done in a medical office. So that's my opinion. But in the past, I used to perform that in office, never had any issues, but I can see why it could be an issue and it could be a problem for both patient and provider. So that's my opinion as you asked for it. Thank you.
Doug.
Good work. Yeah, I agree with you, Lorraine. It's a fine line. By no means do I want to, or anybody want to hurt someone's ear, definitely. But however, I have doctors that I ran into that use Colace, which is interesting, to flush out the ear. A couple of drops and it's like baby drops. And again, I wouldn't do it. But I would say, a lot of people want to. I just feel the need. I'd rather keep the statutes where they're at, but still refer them out. It's a touchy subject.
And
This is
Chair,
Chelsea. I want to chime in and say I agree with what was said, but I had a question if this is something that could be changed. Like, this is something we would have to go to the legislature to change, correct? It's not something as a board that we have control over.
Exactly.
Bob, this is
go
Heather.
ahead, Heather.
Thanks, Bob.
Heather.
I'll just remind the board that it does have a rule 331-670-0020, and that states when a referral is required, and a licensee must refer the client to the physician when the accumulation in the auditory canal prevents visual inspection of the external auditory canal or external auditory meatus and tympanic membrane or foreign body in the ear canal. So that's currently how it is written. And so I'm assuming that you are collecting information on whether or not the council has interest in changing to allow something different than that. But I just wanted to remind the board that that is when a referral is required. And so it does have specific standards that must be met when a referral is required.
This is Doug again.
So-
So we would have to go to the legislature to change this if people wanted to proceed.
So
What's
this
that?
is Heather again. We would be looking at 694142, I believe.
Okay.
And on a brief review, I'm thinking that the accumulation aspect is something that is done by rule. It isn't specifically stated in statute. And I'm just, stating this off the cuff that I'm not seeing it here. So I would say
Heather,
that
this
you
is
might
Ann.
be able to do it in rule. Yes, thanks, Ann.
Hi, if I may jump in here really quick. When I came here over 10 years ago, redoing the HAS rules was one of my first assignments because there were some old circular references, and they were not as clear as they could be. When I redid them, this level of cerumen accumulation triggering a referral was already there. And we ran these rules through a rules advisory committee. And on the committee, there were longstanding practitioners who also proctored practicals and all that. And they were enthusiastic that this stay in rule as a condition for referral. Their short answer was, if you can't see, you don't go. I mean, that was kind of the logic behind it. If you would like to change that, that would involve the rulemaking process. Unlike the Senate Bill 558 rulemaking, which would be fairly simple, as we are only clarifying what a bill, now a statute, requires. That would be something that would be a full rulemaking, because you would be removing something that perhaps another practitioner might feel very passionate about. Like Lorraine might say, no, I would never do this. And someone else say, hey, I could. So that would be a full lengthy rulemaking process. If you are interested, we could look into that, but I will tell you that will be a longer process, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Ann. So I'm not sure if that was clear. So it looks like it's determined by rule. The statute says any other condition that the office may establish by rule. And I believe that is what that is under. We could look at that further. But as Ann said, that sounds like that is a rule issue.
Bob, this is Doug.
Yes, sir.
Are we done with the cerumen management?
No, I don't know.
I think it's,
You're,
I think, go ahead.
I'm gonna say you're the chair. You tell me.
Yeah. So, I just had, I'm sure it's going to be brought up in the future. I like to, stay pretty low key with this, but I'm sure it's going to be brought up again. So I just wanted to see and just touch the tip of the iceberg and see what's going on with it, if it was rules or if it was law. So definitely, I'm sure we're going to hear about it again. And I did have a question for Carrie about the practical we were going to talk about.
She's, come over here, please.
Oh, gosh.
Good morning, Doug. So if I remember your question from earlier, basically you were asking if we were still going to look into taking sections out of the practical. Was that right?
Yeah, the list that we were talking about, and then possibly doing it on a different location, and getting it out of your
Yes.
office.
Yes. And I think I sent over the questions to Anne. I don't remember if I have or not, so I apologize.
Oh, no.
But it would be, I don't know what the process would be on that.
To
Take sections out of the practical or change like where we would do it. Like if we would be able to do it like say Doug's office, because he's a proctor.
sure. We'd
Would
have to
we
look
be able
into
to?
it. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about the process.
Okay. So yes,
So
we can still look into that.
Okay, so just making sure, because I know I sent you the information, so mainly,
Yes.
it's an updated version. Yeah, it's an updated version, up to date, and, you wouldn't have to do it in office, which I'm sure you'd appreciate, so. And I know I was, we were going to talk about changing the practical, getting it more updated, but again, I'm sorry, Cerinthia is no longer there, and my condolences. But we're kind of working with her a long time ago about it, but it just kind of went back on the back burner. So
Yeah.
now that you're here,
Yeah, and we're getting less and less interested proctors as well. I think I only have 3 now.
okay. So yeah, we'll talk about this at a further date, I'm sure. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. That was it.
Okay.
So if there's anything else, Chair, you can read us out.
Alrighty. We're going to adjourn the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids meeting is adjourned at 11:15 a.m. on March 29th, 2024.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob. Bob,
Yeah,
this is Doug. Hey, can I give you a call later on?
sure.
Okay, no problem. I'll give you a holler. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.